And some notices after this, inshallah.
It might be giving me too much to.
Allah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi, everybody, brothers and sisters in Islam. Guys, you're all aware of the notice of the Masjied in terms of the noise nuisance bylaw. The mayor then came to his attention. Well, we voiced our disapproval, got his attention. They immediately pulled back and tried to schedule a meeting with us. That meeting didn't happen. He came there, he attended upon our premises. We had the meeting here with him, and we prepared an official statement outcome, which Brother Anwar has prepared. Here, he has it, and he's going to read it out to us, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Shukran, Zahir. It's been quite a hectic week. Last Thursday we were issued by this notice, and we had a meeting with the mayor on Monday evening. That meeting is publicly available. We recorded it deliberately so that it's transparent and everyone can see what we've said and what the mayor said. And currently it's playing to our advantage. The committee has nominated me to act as the spokesperson on this particular issue and the liaison, so that we have a one-way communication, so there's no confusion as to what our position is, and also communications coming into the committee gets relayed to the committee, we deliberate about it, and then we develop a unified response, a response that has our consensus. And the statement that I'm about to read to you has been adopted by the committee unanimously. Alhamdulillah. It's quite a lengthy statement, so please bear with me. But it's important because it's a carefully worded statement, because it's quite technical in terms of what's happening, and I think it's important for all of us to understand what is happening, because there's a lot of misinformation as well as perceptions that are out there. So we want to put the record straight, and we have only one story, and that's a story that we've articulated with the mayor as well, and we basically providing that information for you when you interact with anyone else, so you know what you're talking about, you know what the current state of affairs are, and you know where we're heading to. Yeah. So please bear with me. Just some background. On Thursday, as I said, on the 12th of May, that was last Thursday, so it's just over a week, we were served with a notice in terms of the Western Cape noise control regulations to tone down the volume. We feel that the volume was in line with the regulation, and the mayor agrees with us generally on that. He was here, he sat through the Adhan, as Imam said, when Mi'raj made the Adhan. We planned that quite deliberately and strategically for him to be here, so he can experience it firsthand. So after notice was served, there was a lot of furore around the issue, and the mayor requested a meeting with us, which we've had. As I've said, we've recorded that. It's on YouTube now. We didn't ambush the mayor. We followed protocol. We informed him up front that we will record, and we sought his permission. Obviously, he couldn't refuse because his council meetings are recorded, and it's a public concern. So he obviously agreed to it. So we have that on record. Everything is on record. It's unedited on YouTube if you want it. It is on social media platforms. But you can also approach us. According to many opposition councillors, though, the mayor reneged on his promise to amend the bylaw and proceeded by leaving the bylaw intact and only updated as what they call a standard operating procedure relating to the bylaw. And thus the bylaw currently is still very much in place. And that's one of the reasons why we've received that notification. Now, according to the mayor, and again you can look at the video, the SOP does exempt places of worship, and it does. It has a clause that says that places of worship are exempt from the bylaw. However, he refuses to follow the more rigorous process to amend the bylaw itself, right? By following a public participatory democratic process by amending the bylaw. is adamant that the SOP, the Standard Operating Procedure, is not an interim measure. In fact, Brother Zahir, as a lawyer and as our legal advisor, asking quite explicitly, again as reflected on the video, whether the SOP is a temporary measure or whether it's a permanent measure. He categorically stated that it is a permanent measure, and that's when we asked him, we understand why he had to maybe do it fortuitously and expediently, but why is he refusing to follow the process to amend the Bible? Not so much for a rigorous process, and it might take a couple of years, but our position was, if it was started way back when we had all these other complaints, the Bible should have been in place, and 2 years in the broader scheme of things is not that long if they start now with it. So our position as a committee is clear. We differ with the mayor in terms of his approach regarding the SOP. Again, we understand maybe why he had to do it as an interim measure, but we strongly encourage him to reconsider his position and commence the process of amending the Bible. And that's, we have signed the petition, that's exactly what it says. We encourage strongly and in fact demand for the mayor to initiate the process to amend the Bible. Now, although we as a committee understand and appreciate why the mayor felt it necessary to adopt a quick fix, expedient approach on a burning issue such as this, we cannot understand why he insists on maintaining it as a permanent feature and not initiate a more rigorous public participatory democratic process in amending the Bible itself. It is our view that the SOP does not go far enough and does not offer sufficient protection to places of worship from the spurious complaints as we received on the 12th of May. Now, although the SOP does state that places of worship are exempt by the Bible and should be dealt with in terms of clause 5.2 of the SOP, and you can read it, it's there in the public domain, it outlines a range of procedures in terms of how to deal with complaints of this nature. And then clause 5.2.3 of the same SOP states, and I quote directly from the SOP, notwithstanding the above, in other words, notwithstanding the procedures in 5.2, nothing prevents the city from taking action against the perpetrators of noise which qualifies as a noise nuisance and a noise disturbance in terms of the relevant city bylaw and the Western Cape Noise Control Regulation where deemed necessary and appropriate. So it's clear that there's a kind of a circular articulation of the regulation. It's clause 6, exempting places of worship, and clause 5.2.3 still allowing the city to invoke the bylaw when they deem it necessary. In other words, the city can at any time invoke both the Western Cape Noise Control Regulations and or the relevant bylaw if they feel it necessary or appropriate to do so. So in essence, places of worship have not been completely exempted from the bylaw. Finally, the standard operating procedure is not legislation, it's not a piece of law, as our brother Zahir will tell you. It's merely an instruction by the mayor to officials in terms of how they need to interpret the law and apply and execute the various provisions contained in the Bible. Because it is a standard operating procedure, an SOP, and not an amendment to the Bible itself, the mayor was able to promulgate this SOP unilaterally without following rigorous public participation process. The problem with this approach is that any subsequent mayor or this mayor himself can do the same in reversing the SOP, making the longevity of the SOP highly flawed and questionable. Furthermore, it is our contention that should the bylaw and the SOP be contested in court, the bylaw will trump the SOP. And that's quite technical because the bylaw is de facto law. the SOP is merely an interpretation and an instruction issued by the mayor, unilaterally decided upon, as I mentioned earlier. The mayor further argues that he follows the process. The mayor further argues that if he follows the process of amending the bylaw and conduct a full-blown, rigorous public participatory process, it will be very divisive for the city, he says. And again, it's on the video, he says it in his own words, and I've quoted him verbatim, and might result in a very different outcome than exempting places of worship from the bylaw. So in other words, he says, if he follows this process, it will be very divisive, and it might result in another outcome, because people might oppose exempting places of worship from the bylaw. We differ with the mayor again on this issue. We truly believe that the rigorous public participating democratic process is required, that in the end result, which will fall on the side of justice and truth, in that a large majority of our citizenry, not only Muslim and non-Muslim, are tolerant and freedom-loving people, supporting the philosophy and principles of our Rainbow Nation. Therefore, in our view, it will be a unifying process, not a divisive one, as suggested by the mayor. And we could see the response of the studies coming. I don't think any of you refused to sign a simple petition demanding that the mayor initiate the process to amend the bylaw. In conclusion, we were obviously shocked and disappointed by the complaint forwarded by the city, as we were under the impression, like probably most of you, that places of worship have been exempted, as articulated by the mayor previously. However, to our dismay, in our investigation subsequent to the notice, it was obvious that the bylaw is still very much alive, as I articulated earlier. Instead, the city promulgated this SOP, which outlines how to sensitively deal with complaints, and thus legally not much have changed. The responsible department who issued this notice have since apologized and withdrawn and retracted the complaint. They say that it was issued in error because of a lack of training on the part of the particular official in terms of the implementation of the SOP. Obviously, the training should have occurred before the issuance of the SOP, but we won't go there. However, it's our view that it is not a matter of lack of training. It is a matter of law, and we have therefore strongly encouraged the mayor to reconsider his position and to initiate the process of amending the bylaw by conducting a full-blown public participation process. Our Masjied has been in existence for 106 years, and the adhan has been sounded 5 times a day continuously for more than a century. And this is its first formal complaint of its kind. The adhan is part and parcel of the intangible heritage fabric of our suburb and indeed of our city, and therefore we regard this complaint as spurious and malicious. And the mayor agrees with us on that. He said so as much. We call on the city to reveal the identity of the complainant so that we can engage and educate this individual about the meaning and the importance of the adhan to a large proportion of the residents of our city. We take this complaint very seriously and don't regard it as an issue only related to our masjid or related to only Muslims. In fact, the bylaw affects all places of worship, mosques, churches, synagogues, temples, and other places of worship, and we are dealing with it as such. Our recommendation is, and our position is clear, we call on the mayor to initiate the process to amend the bylaw to exempt places of worship from such complaints. We call on all progressive organizations, and we will lobby their support as we go forward, as we've done today with yourselves, in demanding that the mayor start the process by amending the bylaw to exempt places of worship from this regulation. We furthermore call on all freedom-loving citizens, Muslim and non-Muslims of all faith, to sign a petition to demand that the mayor start the legal process of initiating the amendment of the bylaw to exempt places of worship from this regulation. We aim to gather 100,000 signatories minimum, and I think it's achievable, digitally as well as physically, to demonstrate to the mayor that our demand is the support of a large proportion of our residents of our society. We are starting right here and now, as you've seen. Pre-sign the petition on your way out, or if you've signed it, shukran for your indulgence. Jummah Mubarak. Thank you very much for indulging me. Salam.